Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use Vivesa, and the plan here is to try to clean up some of this background. So you see how it's kind of just this burned looking color here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click a point in there and take the brightness all the way out to 100. Now you saw that had an impact on Erica too, kind of brightened her up. We're going to deal with that in a minute. So actually let's just go ahead and take this guy somewhere around here and fill up the whole image with it. And so now we want to take that effect off, so we're going to go click on Erica's face. Notice how it took that off, and we're not doing anything else, we're just clicking on it. Put one on the booty here, make the dress normal, click on the hair here, get the hair kind of back to normal, and let's just go ahead and pop some on the legs here, kind of bring those back down as well, and then of course the shoes, and we can kind of move it around. And so now we hover up here and we click on before, after, before, after. It's like there's still a little white on her eyes. Let's go ahead and zoom in there, take care of that while we're at it. Okay, so you'll notice before, after, her teeth and eyes kind of got blown out, so we want to go ahead and click on those guys to undo that, because while we want whites, we don't want blown whites on there, on those teeth and eyes. So, oops, that was an accident. Click on here. Let's see, what does it look like before, after? Yeah, this is what you want when you do a before and after. You want Erica not really to have any shift unless you need some brightness there. And so we're going to go ahead and say OK with that. And what that did is it gave me a nice pure white background. We're going to cut all that out in cropping. In fact, we can go ahead and do a little bit of that right now just for kicks and giggles. But we're going to do more cropping in Lightroom. But just to kind of get rid of some of the noise here, I'm going to just do a big wide crop like that. And I'm not going to worry about sorting anything out now. We're just going to go ahead and accept that and get rid of that. So see now, she's on a pure white background. There's no shadows. If you have any problems with that, you can kind of bring it back by unmasking it. But for this one, that's what I want. I want nice clean image with no shadows. So now it's looking pretty good. Let's play around a little bit and see what else we might want to do. Sometimes what looks nice is if you do a tonal contrast. Now this image doesn't have much to tonal contrast on, so probably not going to help much, but let's take a look. Now the first thing you'll notice when we do this is it does some horrible things to the skin. And what I generally do is I come in here and just set this to 0, and then that gets rid of that. You can also click a negative control point on and get rid of some of that nastiness that you get. If I do a before and after, see, it gives me a lot more texture to the hair. Sometimes it's too much texture to the hair, especially up close. This little loop here, you can kind of see what's happening, and you see it kind of makes the hair look a little wiry. So if I do that, I want to kind of calm it down a little. I do like what it did to the outfit though, to kind of add the texture there. And then the shoes I think improved over what was there before. But overall, another thing you have to be careful about is the saturation. It boosts it up 20%. Maybe that's a little too much. But let's just do accept this for now and hit OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the opacity and just lower that down to about 50%. I only want about half of what we did there. That's good enough for me. And so we can kind of see before, after, before, after. It gave a little bit more, but it didn't just destroy the image. Let's actually zoom into 100%. And see what her hair looks like. Yeah, that hair, I really don't like what it did there, so I'm going to go ahead and create a negative mask by, oops, I keep forgetting on the Mac I got to do this a different way. So undo that mask, and then I'm going to do Alt, click. It's the same thing on the PC, it's just a different spot. That's what gets me. I'm going to just paint that, paint in where I want this effect to be. And so I'm thinking I'll put it on a little bit on the dress and then probably the shoes. So we'll go ahead and get a brush, white, make it a little bit bigger. I can be a little sloppy with this, it's okay. And my Wacom would cooperate with me. I'll just come in here and paint that in where I want it. Now you notice there's some lint and things on here we'll have to take care of. And if you want to see what you're doing and maybe clean up a little bit of it, you can say, oops, Alt, and let's see, bring that in there. And we're only seeing a little bit because our opacity set to 50%. So you see we're not doing a whole lot to it. The lines in. And then get rid of it on the skin. Of course we get a little saturation with that, so you may want to leave it on the skin if you think you want that saturation, but I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it. I'm going to come along here and take some of that off. It's close enough. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and show everything again, come back down, and we're going to work on those feet. So we're going to say white. We're going to paint this effect in on the feet. These shoes will benefit from it. I'm going to bring this brush down a little smaller and just zip, zip, zip. And again, we can kind of test it by doing Alt. See, we missed a spot here, so let's go ahead and add that back in. And I'm pretty much fine with that. It's not perfect, but it's close enough. And let's bring that image back up. Okay, and anything else we want to do? Well, there's a few things we could do. We could call it good, and we could save. Let's go ahead and definitely do that. And then let's maybe see if we can do a little trick I learned from Mr. Scott Kelby. So we're going to do a Control-Alt-Shift-E to create a new layer here that is comprised of everything below it. And then we're going to do a filter, other, high pass filter, and we're going to do it to about let's see, yes, kind of want the edges of the skin to have something on here, so we're going to say maybe about 23. Okay, let me get rid of some of those highlights. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're going to say that, and then we're going to say overlay, and then we're going to do a Alt, click, and then what we can do is we can just brush that in for the skin. And so if I brush that in, maybe don't want it on the elbow there. Brush it in for the rest of the skin there along the edges of the face. You see it kind of creates Cool, interesting tone. And so if we do a before and after, adds a little more texture. And maybe you want that, maybe you don't. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and say no, but sometimes it works. So you try out and see what works and what doesn't. Another little trick that we can do is Kelby's Lab Color trick. So we'll do a Control-Alt-Shift-E again. We'll go Image, Mode, Lab Color, and say Don't Flatten. Now we'll do Image, Apply Image. We're going to come in here and say Soft Light, and we're going to do this at about 30%, and we're going to look at the Lab A and B channels, and see, it kind of darkens the hair when we go to Lab. Kind of brightens the hair and just has a little bit of impact on A. And about the same would be, I'm kind of liking Lab, but I would cover up a little bit of that hair. So if we chose to do this, I'd say OK. Now one thing about this is that sometimes it can create some weird results when printing, so I've started to use it less often for printing, but it's great for display. So when we're done, we want to go back to RGB color, so don't flatten. And sometimes I'll even lower my opacity if it's too much. This one seems to be okay. And so what I'm going to do again is I'm going to just do a Alt click to turn it off. I only apply it where I really feel like I'll get some benefit from it. And for this one, I think it's skin certainly seems to benefit from it. And then the outfit gets a little benefit. So we can kind of get sloppy here and just paint it all in, but I don't think the hair really benefited from it, so I'm going to just leave that off. Because our background's all white, it's not going to really be negatively impacted for us being a little sloppy there. And so you can see it before, after, and just kind of darken things up, gives a little bit more punch for the color. And so if we're going to view this image this way, we don't really need to worry about all the dust. If we're going to print really large, then we need to kind of get in on the outfit here and get rid of some of these lint spots. So we can just create another layer if we want to do that. Oops, I'll go change this and call it Lab Color, Lab Channel 30%. And then I'll get my brush again, and I'll just kind of hit these guys and kind of knock out some of that dust, lint that you typically get on anything that's black. Black looks cool when you're done with it, but it's a pain in the butt. In this case, literally. Way you get all those little lint flakes off. Okay. And again, we're not going to really view this one quite as large, so it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. That was just a spot on my display, so that didn't really do much. I'm not too worried about these hairs. Some people want to get rid of them. That's fine if you want to, but it's a little more effort than it's worth, and generally people aren't going to notice when an image is small. So let's come back a little bit here. There's a little spot in the hair. I want to get this guy here. It's been bothering me, so I want to come along and zap that dude. Oops. We got on the wrong layer there. And so let's come back up. Yeah, looks good. So we're going to say hair and dress touch-ups. And then last thing we're going to do here is we're going to sharpen this image.